Hi students, today we are making a big chewy pretzel. I decided to do the demonstration a day ahead so that we would have more time to focus on this in class. So I have all of my ingredients out, measured, and ready to go. The first thing that we're going to do is get our water for our yeast. It needs to be warm. So if you test this inside part of your wrist, this will give you a good gauge for how hot it is. So if it feels cold or the same temperature as your wrist, it's too cold. If it's hot, but you can still bear it, it's the perfect temperature. If it's too hot where you feel like you're burning, then it's too hot and it's going to kill your yeast. Your yeast looks like this. It is a living organism and it is activated by hot water and sugar. So we'll go ahead and follow our recipe. The first direction is to dissolve the yeast in our water. If your water is too cold, it will not dissolve. So the way to tell if your yeast is healthy is it will start bubbling up just like this. So I just poured it in and you can see that it's starting to foam just a little bit. So I'm going to mix it up into this mixture until it starts to dissolve. Okay, and there will be these little clumps of yeast. That's okay. But if your water is the appropriate temperature, then it's going to have no issues dissolving. So I'm just going to mix that together. Okay, and then I'm going to pour this whole thing into my mixture, into my large mixing bowl. And there will be a few little remnants behind. Just use your spoon to go ahead and get those out. Okay, and I'm just still mixing that up. The next direction is to melt our margarine for 30 to 40 seconds in a microwave safe dish. I've already done that to save myself some time. But if you have not done that, go ahead and do it now. Our next direction is to preheat our oven to 425 degrees. The thing with this is that you have to preheat your oven before you start cooking. The reason being, as the heat is stable in your oven, it's going to cook all of your bread products in a more consistent way. If you preheat your oven and it's not up to temperature when you put in your bread, it's going to make everything sink because it's going to make your bread rise, but not all the way, and then it'll sink. So for the most success, you want to preheat your oven before you even put your bread in and make sure it's to temperature. Let's go ahead and keep moving forward with our bread. So my oven is preheating to 425 degrees. The next direction is to take and put a piece of tin foil on a cookie sheet and to spray it down with cooking spray. I'm going to do that right now. So I just have my cooking spray. I'm going to shake it up and spray my pan. And you want a nice even coating. This will help our pretzels to not stick to our foil as much. So you can see that it has been greased now. Okay? The next direction is to add our salt to our mixture of our yeast and our water. We know from our lecture on Monday that salt kills yeast. But if it's used in the right amount, it controls the yeast so that your bread doesn't fly out of control while it's in the oven. So we use our salt to control the yeast, but also to add flavor to our mixture. So I'm just going to add that in. And then we're going to add our sugar, okay? So we know that yeast loves sugar. That's what these organisms, they feed off of. They love sugar. So I'm just going to give that a little mix with my spoon. And you can still see clumps of yeast in my mixture here. That's okay. At this point in time, we're okay with that. It doesn't need to be perfect. After we've added our sugar, we're going to add our dry milk powder. So if you've never seen non-fat dry milk, it looks like this, okay? So it's non-fat dry milk. It is powdered milk. It's shelf stable for years and years and years. And it can be a really good alternative to regular milks if you're going for food storage or other low-fat options. So it is a good option for sure. Next we have our melted margarine that we're going to add in here. This is our fat. As we talked about in class on Wednesday, our fat adds flavor to our bread, but it also, the most important thing is that it makes our texture desirable. And after we do that, we are going to whisk 1 egg in a small bowl. So I just crack the egg. And then I'm just going to use a fork to whisk that and combine the egg yolk with the egg white. So you can just beat it like this. Okay, and then you add this to your yeast mixture, your 1 egg. Then we're going to blend in the flour. Now this part is going to take a little bit more skill. And it looks like I'm fresh out of wooden spoons. So I'm going to borrow kitchen wands. Okay? So we have a wooden spoon here, and we are going to we're going to combine our 4 cups of flour with our yeast mixture. Just gently put it in. You don't just want to dump it because it's going to overwhelm that yeast and it might go out of your bowl and make a big mess. So you're just going to gently combine that. I would recommend combining a little bit of flour first and then mixing it together and then adding some more. So we know from our experience with bread products that our bread is measured in ounces. So 1 piece of bread equals 1 ounce. Did you know that? It's kind of interesting. So 1 piece of bread equals 1 ounce, which if you're just measuring with just your hands, you know that 1 ounce is the tip of your thumb, or I guess it's your whole thumb. Yeah, kind of interesting. So we're using our wooden spoon to combine that dough or that flour with our wet ingredients, and we have a nice dough forming. We know that our dough is more dry ingredient than wet ingredient. So for the sake of simplicity, it's more flour than water. Whereas with batter, it's more water than flour. It's just the opposite. So our batter is going to be more runny than our dough. So next we need to knead this mixture that we have here. I'm going to put my dirty dishes in the sink. If I had a kitchen mate, they could be washing the dishes while I'm doing this. So in order to knead our bread, we need to lightly flour our surface here. So I'm going to grab a measuring cup and my flour, and I'm just going to gently put some flour on our kitchen counter here. This has been sanitized, so I know for sure we are good to go. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take this dough and put it right out onto this flour. Now, when you are kneading, the key is to use the palms of your hands. So you want to kind of use this sort of, what is it called? Like a heel method, for lack of a better word, and just use the heel of your hand, the palms of your hands, to turn over that dough. Okay? So it's on our floured surface. My dough is still pretty sticky, so I want to use the flour on the table to my advantage. So, because I don't want it to stick to my hands, I want it to be a good texture. So we use the palms of your hands, roll it over, use the palm of your hand, or I guess a better word is the heel of your hand, okay? Use the heel of your hand, turn it over, rearrange it, heel, 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 okay? Heel, heel, etc. So I'm going to knead this for 5 minutes. I have a really nice texture here going with my dough. Okay. And so you can tell it's not sticking to my hands as much anymore, which is good. That's what we want. And what we're doing while we're kneading is we are developing that gluten. So gluten is a protein that's found in our wheat kernel. It's found in the endosperm, part of the grain. And what it does is it creates elasticity in your bread. So as we are using our heel, we're stretching out that gluten and we're helping it to develop. We're also developing carbon dioxide with our yeast. And this is helping us to make sure that our bread rises properly and it does what we want it to do. So again, I'm just using the heels of my hands. I'm turning over that dough and I'm kneading it for 5 minutes. And I've used most of my flour. We still have a little bit that's left on the counter. If it's a good texture, you don't need to use all of it. But mine is a little bit sticky, so I'm just gonna get this area of my flour and work that into my dough. Okay, so we have to develop this gluten or else we'll have a weird texture and our bread will be more dense than we want it to be. So just roll it over and use the palms of your hands. Okay, this is looking really good. So one way that you can test for an appropriate dough is that it's not sticking to your hands anymore. But also, if you pinch just a little bit of it, it should match the texture of your earlobe. I know that sounds weird, but this is appropriate. So if we just take this little section, it's not sticking to my hands, it's elastic, and it feels like my earlobe if I were to touch that right now. If you are actually touching your earlobe, make sure to wash your hands in between that and handling your dough. So this is good. This is what we want. I'll put it more in view of the camera. This is exactly correct. The very next thing is we need to divide our dough into 4 equal pieces. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to just take my dough and divide it in half, roughly, and then I'm going to divide it in 2 more halves. Okay? So if it looks like one of them is a little bit bigger than the other one, then you can peel off more or pinch off more, whatever, and make it so that they're a little bit more equal. Okay? So just like that. The next direction is to roll one piece of dough at a time into smooth 20 to 25 inch ropes. The way I do that is I take my rope and I just start working it out with my hands. So go ahead and roll back and forth. And if you want to get a ruler, you can for reference, but we're looking for 20 to 25 pieces here. On your recipe sheet, it says that you want to do this with, you want everyone to roll out their own pretzel because this takes quite a bit of time and we don't have that much time in class anymore. So let it be known, you need to work quickly. So here's how you fold dough, how you roll it up to be a pretzel. So I have some areas of my dough that are a little bit wonky, a little bit wrong. Okay, a little bit weird. So what we're going to do is I have my rope. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to twist both of these sides 2 times. And then I'm going to bring it down and tuck it under, okay? And then I'm going to put this on my cookie sheet, okay? So that you can see this just like that. So now I need to roll out my 3 other ones. My oven just beeped, letting me know that my oven is ready. So again, we're just making kind of a snake by rolling out these pieces, okay? So again, here's how you roll for a pretzel. You take your 2 ends, you overlap them once, twice, 3 times, flip it over, and there you go. And it's okay if it's a little bit wonky. I'm working fast, so it's okay if it's not perfect. So there's your pretzel, and it's okay if they're touching a little bit. They won't expand too much in the oven. So they'll expand a little bit, but you'll be okay. Okay, so this one is also ready. So again, ends together, 2, 3, flip it over, and there's your pretzel. Then we need to, after these are all rolled out, we need to brush all of them with a beaten egg and with any optional toppings. You do not need to put any toppings on your pretzels, totally optional, but I'm choosing to put Parmesan cheese on these because I feel like that'll be yummy, and I've never made pretzels with Parmesan cheese on them before. So this was actually my quarantine project back in March, was I learned how to do pretzel making. So that was what my fun new hobby was. So we wrap 3 times, bring it down. This guy's a little bit lopsided, so I'm just gonna even out this end. And then we'll go to town. Of course, you don't have to wrap it 3 times, but I found that that's the best option for making sure your pretzels are good and happy. So these are just about done. Here's what they look like on my pan. It's okay if they're a little bit close. I'm going to beat my egg into this bowl. Okay, make sure that the egg white and the egg yolk are completely combined. Just like that. So you can't really see a difference between the egg white and the egg yolk. They are combined. Then you will use a brush, if I can find one in my master kitchen. Give me just a second. Now I'm wondering if you guys have brushes in your kitchen. Wahaha, I found one. I hope you enjoyed listening to me search through different cabinets. So we're going to grab our egg mixture and a brush and go ahead and spread that egg mixture all over your pretzels. This is going to help your pretzels get that beautiful brown color, and it'll also help your toppings to stick onto your mixture. Okay. Doesn't need to be perfect, just spread it on. And it's okay if you don't use all of the egg mixture. So knowing how pressed we are for time, I will measure out the ingredients for you so that you can just move super quick on this, okay? And here's my Parmesan cheese. We'll just go ahead and sprinkle that on top. Doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. And we're just about ready to go. So I'll put these in the oven for about 15 minutes. Okay. So we have 15 minutes on the clock, and I'm going to clean up in that time to show that you can do it. So go ahead and throw away whatever of the seasoning you didn't use. And you can hang tight while I clean up, because I want to show you the end result. And so I am done. I'm just waiting for the pretzels to be finished. This will take me right up until the bell. Okay. If you have to leave a wet sink, that's okay with me, but I do not want to see any dough remnants left over. So a wet sink is different than a dirty sink. So I do not want to see a dirty sink. We are just about to time, so let me go ahead and pull these out and show you what they look like. Okay. Here's what our pretzels look like as the finished product. I could even do a couple more minutes, but I really don't have the time. So that's what we're looking at, and this will be a fun lab. Thanks, everyone.